The information provided in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, legal, or professional automotive advice. Purchasing a vehicle involves significant financial risk and market volatility. While we discuss historical trends, case studies, and potential outcomes based on market data, individual results will vary based on credit score, geographic location, and specific vehicle condition. Always perform your own due diligence, consult with a qualified financial advisor, and have any used vehicle inspected by a certified mechanic before finalizing a purchase. The creators of this content are not responsible for any financial losses or mechanical issues resulting from decisions made based on this video. The moment you drive a brand new car off the dealership lot, you are effectively setting fire to a stack of $100 bills. In the American market, the average new vehicle loses approximately 20% of its value in the first 12 months of ownership. For a $50,000 SUV, that is a $10,000 hit to your net worth before you even finish the first tank of gasoline. Yet, the alternative, the used car market, has become a psychological and financial minefield. In recent years, we have seen used car prices skyrocket to the point where 3-year-old models were selling for more than their original MSRP. This has created a fundamental crisis for the American consumer. Are you better off absorbing the massive depreciation of a new car to gain the security of a warranty? Or are you better off gambling on a used vehicle that may have hidden mechanical failures or a history of neglected maintenance? Most people approach this decision based on emotion or a monthly payment figure provided by a salesperson, but today we are stripping away the marketing fluff. We are diving into the cold, hard data of the 2026 automotive landscape to determine exactly which path protects your capital and which one drains your bank account. This video is a comprehensive deep dive into the new versus used debate, tailored specifically for the complexities of the current U.S. market. Whether you are looking at a fuel-efficient commuter, a heavy-duty work truck, or a family-oriented electric vehicle, the rules of the game have changed. We are going to solve the problem of buyer's remorse by providing you with a systematic framework to evaluate total cost of ownership, depreciation curves, and the true value of manufacturer incentives versus the potential savings of the secondary market. By the end of this masterclass, you will not just be shopping for a car. You will be strategically acquiring an asset with a full understanding of the long-term fiscal implications. To understand where we are going, we have to look at the massive shift in how cars are manufactured and sold in America. Historically, the advice was simple. Buy a 2-year-old car, let the first owner take the depreciation hit, and drive it for a decade. That logic was based on a world where supply was high and technology moved slowly. Today, we are dealing with a chip-defined era of vehicles. Modern cars are rolling computers, and this changes the used equation significantly. A 5-year-old car today isn't just older in terms of miles. It is generations behind in terms of safety software, battery efficiency, and infotainment connectivity. This tech obsolescence factor is now a primary driver of depreciation that many traditional car buyers completely overlook. Let's look at a case study involving the most popular vehicle segment in America, the midsize SUV. Suppose you are looking at a brand new model with a sticker price of $45,000. The manufacturer is offering a promotional financing rate of 1.9% because they need to move inventory. Now, compare that to a 3-year-old version of the same SUV priced at $34,000. At first glance, you are saving $11,000. However, the used car loan market is currently seeing interest rates between 7 and 9% for buyers with good credit. When you calculate the total interest paid over a 60-month term, that $11,000 savings begins to evaporate. Furthermore, the new car comes with a bumper-to-bumper warranty for 3 years and potentially free scheduled maintenance. The used car is likely out of its initial warranty phase, meaning a single transmission failure or an electronics glitch could result in a $4,000 out-of-pocket expense in the first month of ownership. This is why we must look at the total cost of ownership, or TCO. The TCO includes the purchase price, interest, insurance premiums, which are often higher for new cars but can vary wildly based on safety features, fuel or charging costs, and most importantly, the projected resale value 5 years down the line. We are going to break down these numbers using real-world data from the last 24 months of auction results and retail sales. We will examine how different brands hold their value differently. For example, a high-end European luxury sedan may lose 60% of its value in 5 years, while a Japanese-made midsize truck might only lose 25%. If you buy the wrong used car, you are buying someone else's headache. If you buy the wrong new car, You are subsidizing the manufacturer's profit margins at the expense of your own financial future. In this first part of our 10-part series, we are setting the foundation by analyzing the depreciation cliff. Every car has one. It is that specific point in time or mileage where the value drops faster than at any other period. For some vehicles, it's the 30,000-mile mark when the first major service is due. For others, it's the moment a new body style is announced. Understanding the cliff is the difference between a smart purchase and a financial disaster. We will also address the certified pre-owned, or CPO programs. Many U.S. consumers view CPO as the Goldilocks zone, the perfect middle ground between new and used. We will investigate whether the premium you pay for a CPO label is actually worth the added cost, or if it is simply a clever way for dealerships to inflate the price of a standard used vehicle. Furthermore, we cannot ignore the impact of the shift toward electrification. The U.S. market is currently split between internal combustion engines, hybrids, and full battery electric vehicles. Each of these categories has a completely different depreciation profile. A used electric vehicle might look like a bargain, but if the battery health is at 80%, you are looking at a massive future liability. Conversely, new electric vehicles often come with federal and state tax credits that can effectively shave $7,500 or more off the purchase price, often making a new EV cheaper than a 2-year-old used one once the incentives are factored in. This is a nuance that the average buyer misses because they only look at the list price on the window sticker. We are going to give you the exact steps to audit your own needs before you even step foot on a lot. We will talk about the rule of April 20th 10 in car buying, putting 20% down, financing for no more than 4 years, and keeping total transportation costs under 10% of your gross income, and why this rule is harder than ever to follow in the current economy. We will explore how to use historical trends to predict which models will be modern classics that hold their value, and which ones will be paperweights in half a decade. The American car market is currently in a state of pre-correction. Inventory levels are stabilizing, but the cost of capital remains high. This creates a unique opportunity for those who have the data. You are about to learn how to negotiate not just the price of the car, but the terms of the entire deal, whether you are buying from a massive franchise dealership, a small independent lot, or a private party on a digital marketplace. We are going to expose the hidden fees that dealerships use to recoup their margins on low-priced used cars, and the add-on traps that wait for new car buyers in the finance and insurance office. This is about more than just wheels and an engine. This is a masterclass in one of the biggest financial decisions you will make this decade. Let's get to work. To truly master the American car market in 2026, you must first understand the psychological warfare of the dealership floor. Imagine a buyer named Michael in Columbus, Ohio. Michael has done his research, or so he thinks. He enters a sleek, glass-fronted dealership looking at a brand-new mid-size pickup truck. The sticker price is $52,000. The salesperson, trained in the art of the monthly payment pivot, doesn't talk about the $52,000. Instead, they ask Michael what he can afford every month. This is the first trap of the new car market. By shifting the focus from the total capitalized cost to a manageable $700 monthly payment, the dealership can hide thousands of dollars in high-margin add-ons like nitrogen-filled tires, etched window vents, and overpriced paint protection packages. Historical trends show that these items often have a markup of over 500%, yet they are rolled into a long-term loan where the interest compounds over 72 or even 84 months. The reality of the 2026 market is that the gap between new and used has been blurred by the rising cost of borrowing. Let's look at a specific case study involving a compact crossover, the most competitive segment in the United States. In 2023 and 2024, we saw a massive supply chain disruption that pushed used car prices to 90% of their original MSRP. As we sit here in 2026, the market has begun to normalize, but a new phenomenon has emerged: the high-interest used car trap. If Michael decides that $52,000 for a new truck is too high and looks at a 3-year-old model for $38,000, he might feel like he is winning. However, the promotional financing on the new truck might be 0.9% for well-qualified buyers, while the used truck carries a rate of 8.5%. Over a 5-year loan, Michael would pay roughly $1,200 in interest on the new truck, but over $8,000 in interest on the used one. The perceived savings of $14,000 on the purchase price is immediately slashed by nearly half just through the cost of the money itself. This leads us to the critical concept of the functional life cycle. In previous decades, a car with 100,000 miles was considered near the end of its reliable life. In 2026, many modern powertrains are engineered to reach 200,000 miles with basic maintenance. This has created a massive opportunity in what we call the high-mileage sweet spot. Imagine if Michael shifted his search to a vehicle with 80,000 miles. Historically, this is where the second major depreciation cliff occurs. Many buyers are terrified of the 100,000-mile mark, leading to a sharp drop in resale value. For a savvy buyer, this represents a potential outcome where the majority of the depreciation has already been realized by the first and second owners. The key to navigating this is the pre-purchase inspection, or PPI. In the American market, a mobile mechanic can be hired for approximately $200 to perform a comprehensive diagnostic. This $200 investment is the only thing standing between Michael and a hidden $5,000 transmission failure. Step by step, the process for evaluating a used vehicle in 2026 requires a digital-first approach. You start with the vehicle history report, but you cannot stop there. You must cross-reference the service records with the manufacturer's recommended maintenance schedule. If a vehicle is at 90,000 miles and the timing belt or the spark plugs have not been replaced according to the manual, that is a deferred maintenance liability you are inheriting. You are not just buying a car, you are buying a maintenance log. If that log is empty, the price must reflect the upcoming service costs. In our case study, if Michael finds that the $38,000 truck needs $3,000 in immediate service, his real cost is $41,000. When you add the high interest rate, the new truck with its 5-year warranty and low interest starts to look like a much more stable financial move. However, the new car market has its own set of pitfalls, specifically the rapid advancement of advanced driver assistance systems, or ADAS. In 2026, a new car comes standard with Level 2 autonomous features, sophisticated lane keep assist, and augmented reality head-up displays. While these features improve safety and the driving experience, they are also incredibly expensive to repair. A minor fender bender that would have cost $1,500 in 2016 can now cost $6,000 because of the sensors and calibration required in the front bumper. This has led to a historical trend of rising insurance premiums for new vehicles. When Michael calculates his total cost of ownership, he must call his insurance agent and get a quote for both the new and the used vehicle. Often, the insurance savings on an older, less sensor-heavy vehicle can offset some of the fuel inefficiency or maintenance costs. Data from 2025 and early 2026 suggests that the average American keeps their vehicle for approximately 8 years. If you are a long-term owner, the depreciation of a new car matters less because you are amortizing that loss over nearly a decade. The problem arises when a buyer trades in their vehicle every 3 years. In this scenario, the new car buyer is perpetually trapped in the steepest part of the depreciation curve, effectively paying a luxury tax for the smell of new leather and a clean infotainment screen. For these buyers, leasing might seem attractive, but leasing in 2026 often carries hidden fees and strict mileage restrictions that can result in massive penalties at the end of the term. Let's pivot to the hybrid and electric vehicle market, which is the fastest growing sector in the US. The data here is even more volatile. We have seen case studies where certain electric models lose 50% of their value in just 2 years due to rapid improvements in battery density and charging speed. If you buy a new EV in 2026, you might find that by 2028, a new model offers double the range for the same price, crashing the resale value of your current car. In this specific niche, the used market offers extreme value for those who don't need the latest range figures. A 2-year-old EV with 250 miles of range might be available for 40% less than a new one with 300 miles of range. For the average American who drives less than 40 miles a day, that 40% discount represents a massive win in the total cost of ownership calculation. As we look deeper into the mechanics of these deals, we have to talk about the inventory glut. In mid-2026, several major American manufacturers have found themselves with an oversupply of internal combustion engine vehicles as they pivot to electric. This has led to the return of significant dealer incentives and trunk money, cash the manufacturer gives the dealer to move specific units. This is where the informed buyer wins. By tracking days on lot data through third-party websites, Michael can identify which specific trucks have been sitting for more than 90 days. A truck that has been taking up space for 3 months is a liability for the dealership, and they are often willing to strip away the market adjustments and protection packages just to clear the floor plan. But even if you find the perfect car at the perfect price, there is one document that can ruin everything. It is the one thing that both new and used buyers sign without reading properly: and it contains the secret to how dealerships make more money on the back end than they do on the car itself. It involves a specific type of insurance that most people don't think they need until it's too late, and a legal clause that could prevent you from ever taking the manufacturer to court if the car turns out to be a lemon. Understanding this document is the difference between being a customer and being a victim. In the next part, we are going to tear apart the standard purchase agreement and show you exactly which lines to cross out before you pick up the pen. We are moving from the lot to the finance office, where the real money is made and lost. The finance and insurance office, often referred to as the F&I box, is the most profitable square footage in any American dealership. To understand the gravity of what happens in this room, you have to realize that for many dealerships in 2026, the profit made on the actual sale price of the car is negligible compared to the back-end products sold during the final 30 minutes of the transaction. Imagine Sarah, a healthcare administrator in Denver. Sarah has spent 3 weeks negotiating a fair price on a 2026 hybrid sedan. She is exhausted, she is hungry, and she just wants to drive her new car home. This is exactly when the finance manager strikes. They present a menu of options, often bundled together to make the individual costs harder to distinguish. The core of this menu usually features gap insurance, extended service contracts, and tire and wheel protection. Let's look at the historical trends surrounding gap insurance. GAP stands for Guaranteed Asset Protection, though in this educational context, we refer to it as a potential outcome for negative equity. Because of the 20% depreciation hit we discussed earlier, if Sarah were to total her vehicle 6 months after purchase, her primary insurance company might only pay out the current market value, which could be $10,000 less than what she still owes on her loan. The dealership will offer Sarah gap insurance for $1,200. In reality, Sarah could likely add this same coverage through her existing auto insurance provider for a few dollars a month, totaling less than $300 over the life of the loan. By signing the dealership's paperwork without checking her own insurance first, Sarah has just handed over $900 in pure profit to the dealer. Then there is the issue of the arbitration agreement. Hidden deep within the stack of digital signatures is often a clause that waives your right to a jury trial in the event of a legal dispute. In the American legal landscape of 2026, this is a massive tactical disadvantage for the consumer. If Sarah's car turns out to be a lemon or if there is a fundamental breach of contract, she is forced into private arbitration, a form that historical trends suggest is often more favorable to large corporations than individual consumers. Step by step, the way to handle this is to ask for the paperwork in advance. In the digital age, there is no reason a dealership cannot email you the full contract 24 hours before you arrive. You must look for phrases like mandatory binding arbitration and realize that in many states, these clauses are negotiable, or can be struck from the agreement entirely if you are willing to walk away from the deal. Next, we must deconstruct the extended service contract, often mistakenly called an extended warranty. A true warranty comes from the manufacturer. A service contract is essentially a high-priced insurance policy against mechanical failure. In 2026, vehicles are more reliable than ever in terms of their mechanical components, but their electronic components are increasingly complex. The dealership will tell Sarah that a single sensor failure could cost $3,000, which is a potential outcome. However, case studies of these contracts show that they often contain exclusionary language. If a mouse chews through a wiring harness or if a specific software glitch is deemed a manufacturer defect not covered by the third-party administrator, Sarah is still paying for the repair out of pocket. Furthermore, these contracts are often priced at $3,000 to $4,000 at the dealership. If Sarah truly wants the peace of mind, she can often purchase a manufacturer-backed service plan from a different dealership online for half the price. This is a little-known secret in the US market. You do not have to buy the service contract from the same dealer where you buy the car. Now let's talk about the math of the loan itself. The finance manager is not just a paperwork processor. They are a salesperson for debt. They have access to dozens of lenders, and they are often allowed to add a spread to the interest rate. If a bank approves Sarah for a 6% interest rate, the dealer might present her with an 8% rate. That 2% difference is known as reserve, and it is paid out to the dealership as a commission. Over a 72-month loan on a $40,000 car, that 2% spread costs Sarah over $2,500 in additional interest. To combat this, Sarah must arrive with a pre-approval from her own credit union or bank. This forces the dealership to either beat the rate or lose the financing business altogether. We also need to address the high-stakes world of the trade-in. Imagine if Sarah is trading in her old vehicle as part of the deal. The dealership will often use the trade-in value as a shell game. They might give her a great price on the new car but lowball her trade-in by $3,000. Or they might give her an inflated trade-in value while quietly adding that same $3,000 back into the price of the new car through hidden fees. In the 2026 market, the only way to win this game is to decouple the transactions. Sarah should get a written offer from a dedicated used car retailer or an online car buying service before she ever mentions a trade-in to the dealer. By knowing the exact floor price of her current asset, she eliminates the dealer's ability to manipulate the numbers. Another critical document in the 2026 purchase process is the buyer's guide, specifically for used cars. This is a federal requirement in the United States, and it tells you whether a vehicle is being sold with a warranty or as is. Many consumers assume that a car from a reputable dealership must have some kind of protection. This is a dangerous misconception. If the as-is box is checked, the moment Sarah drives over the curb and the transmission falls out, it is her problem and her problem alone. We have seen case studies where buyers spent their entire life savings on a used luxury vehicle, only to find it needed a $12,000 engine rebuild 2 weeks later. Without a written warranty or a successful claim under state-level lemon laws, which are notoriously difficult to navigate for used vehicles, there is no recourse. Finally, we must look at the impact of data privacy in the 2026 car buying experience. Modern cars are data collection engines. Part of the paperwork Sarah signs will include a privacy disclosure that often grants the manufacturer the right to collect and sell her driving data, location history, and even biometric information. In some cases, this data is sold to insurance companies, which can then use it to raise her premiums based on her braking habits or the times of day she drives. Reading the fine print on the data consent forms is no longer optional. It is a fundamental part of protecting your digital and financial footprint. As we navigate through these documents, the pressure in the F&I office can become overwhelming. The manager might use time-sensitive tactics, telling Sarah that the promotional rate expires today, or that another buyer is waiting in the lobby for this exact car. These are classic psychological triggers designed to bypass analytical thinking. But there is one specific question Sarah can ask that will immediately change the power dynamic in the room. It is a question that forces the finance manager to reveal the true cost of every single line item and exposes the hidden profit margins they are trying to protect. Understanding this question and how to use it is your ultimate shield. In the next part, we are going to look at the actual negotiation phase, the words you need to say and the data you need to bring to the table to ensure you are the one in control of the transaction, not the salesperson. We are moving from the paperwork to the power play. Negotiation in the 2026 American car market is no longer about who can shout the loudest or who can walk away from the table the most times. It has evolved into a high-stakes data war. To win, you must realize that the salesperson's greatest weapon is your own lack of information. Imagine a buyer named David in Phoenix. David is looking at a used 2023 full-size SUV. The dealer has it listed for $48,000. David's instinct is to offer $45,000 and hope they meet in the middle. This is a legacy tactic that rarely works in an era of algorithmic pricing. Instead, David needs to walk in with a dossier of market data. In 2026, dealerships use software that tracks every similar vehicle within a 500-mile radius. If David wants to negotiate effectively, he must use the same tools. He should bring printouts or digital tabs showing 3 identical SUVs within 60 miles that are priced lower or have fewer miles. This shifts the conversation from David wants a lower price to the market price for this asset is actually $44,500, and here is the evidence. The first rule of the power play is the mastery of the out-the-door price. Most consumers make the mistake of negotiating the sales price of the car, only to be blindsided by $4,000 in fees at the very end. When David speaks to the salesperson, he should use the specific phrase, "I am only interested in discussing the out-the-door price, inclusive of all taxes, title, registration, and dealer fees." This forces the dealership to reveal their hidden margin boosters early. In the U.S. market, these often include documentation fees, which in some states are capped by law, but in others, like Florida or Nevada, can exceed $900. By focusing on the total number, David prevents the dealer from lowering the car price by $500 while quietly raising a service fee by $600. Let's look at a case study of a high-demand vehicle like a new hybrid truck. In 2026, these vehicles often have a market adjustment or a dealer markup above the manufacturer's suggested retail price. If the MSRP is $60,000, the dealer might add a $5,000 market adjustment because of low inventory. David's strategy here is not to argue that the price is unfair, but to attack the value proposition. He should ask for a line item breakdown of the adjustment. If the dealer claims it includes ceramic coating and window tint, David should counter with professional quotes from local independent shops showing those services only cost $1,200. By deconstructing the markup, David can often negotiate the adjustment down to a fraction of the original ask, or better yet, get the dealer to include tangible value like a prepaid maintenance plan that actually benefits him over the next 3 years. The psychological aspect of the negotiation is equally vital. There is a historical trend in dealerships known as the Foursquare method. This is a physical or digital worksheet divided into 4 boxes: your trade-in value, the purchase price, the down payment, and the monthly payment. The salesperson will jump between these boxes to confuse you. If David says the price is too high, the salesperson will lower the price but increase the interest rate in the monthly payment box. If David says the monthly payment is too high, they will stretch the loan term from 60 to 84 months. David must refuse to use the Foursquare. He should insist on negotiating each variable in isolation. Start with the purchase price. Once that is locked in writing, move to the trade-in. Only after those are settled should David discuss financing, and even then, only if they can beat his pre-approved rate from his credit union. Imagine if David is dealing with a private seller instead of a dealership. The power play shifts from attacking corporate margins to assessing individual risk. In 2026, the private market is flooded with vehicles that still have active liens. If David buys a car from a private party without ensuring the title is clear, he could end up in a legal nightmare where the bank repossesses the car he just paid for. The negotiation in a private sale should always be contingent on a successful title transfer at the lien holder's branch or a specialized automotive title office. David can use this complexity to his advantage. If a seller is frustrated by the process of clearing a title, David can offer a slightly lower price in exchange for handling the administrative legwork or meeting at the bank to facilitate an immediate payoff. Another critical tactic is the end-of-month, end-of-quarter, and end-of-year pressure. While this is a well-known concept, the 2026 data shows it is more relevant than ever due to manufacturer volume bonuses. Dealerships often receive massive payouts from the manufacturer if they hit a specific sales target, say, 200 units in a month. If it is the 28th of the month and they are at 198 units, they are often willing to sell the last 2 cars at a loss just to trigger the 6-figure bonus from the manufacturer. David can identify these opportunities by looking for high-volume dealerships with massive inventories. A smaller boutique lot is less likely to have these manufacturer-driven incentives. By timing his entry to the final 48 hours of a fiscal quarter, David positions himself as the person who helps the dealer hit their goal, which translates into maximum leverage for him. However, David must be wary of the sinking ship scenario. This occurs when a specific model has been plagued by recalls or a known mechanical defect that hasn't hit the mainstream news yet. Historical trends show that once a major defect becomes common knowledge, resale values plummet overnight. Before David finalizes any negotiation, he must check the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration database and specialized owner forms for 2026 models. If a vehicle has an open investigation for high-voltage battery fires or transmission failure, that information is his ultimate negotiation leverage. He can either demand a massive discount to compensate for the risk or, more wisely, walk away from the deal entirely. No discount is worth the potential outcome of a vehicle that is permanently sidelined by a lack of replacement parts. Step by step, David's negotiation checklist should look like this. First, obtain the build sheet or the window sticker to verify every installed option. Often, dealers will charge for features that were actually included for free from the factory. Second, demand a copy of the internal dealer inspection report for used cars. This shows what the dealer actually fixed when they took the car in. If they only changed the oil but the tires are at 4/32 of an inch of tread, David should negotiate the price of a new set of tires off the total. Third, use the power of the silent partner. David should never feel pressured to make a decision on the spot. He can simply state that he needs to consult with his spouse or business partner before signing. This breaks the momentum of the salesperson's closing script and gives David the space to review the numbers away from the high-pressure environment of the showroom. As the negotiation nears completion, there is one final hurdle that catches even the most experienced buyers off guard. It is the transition from the sales floor to the delivery bay. This is where the dealership might try to swap the agreed-upon vehicle for one with a slightly different VIN, or where they might try to sneak in a final add-on during the excitement of the handoff. David must remain vigilant until the keys are in his hand and he is off the property. But even more important than the negotiation itself is the way David plans to pay for the car. There is a massive shift occurring in the U.S. financial system regarding auto loan structures and the rise of subscription-based ownership models. If you choose the wrong path, you could find yourself paying for a car you no longer own, or worse, trapped in a debt cycle that lasts a decade. In the next part, we are going to break down the 2026 financing revolution and show you why the traditional 60-month loan might be the most dangerous financial product on the market today. We are moving from the art of the deal to the science of the debt. The transition from the sales floor to the finance office is where most American car buyers lose their financial footing. In 2026, the average price of a new vehicle in the United States has climbed to over $48,000, while used car prices hover around $27,000. This massive capital requirement has birthed a new era of predatory lending structures designed to make the unattainable feel affordable. To understand the science of the debt, we have to look at the death of the traditional 60-month loan. For decades, 5 years was the gold standard for automotive financing. It balanced a manageable monthly payment with a reasonable interest cost, and ensured that the buyer gained equity in the vehicle before it reached its high-maintenance years. But in today's market, the 60-month loan has been replaced by what we call the zombie loan, the 84-month and even 96-month term. Imagine James, a software developer in Charlotte, North Carolina. James is looking at a 2026 electric SUV with a sticker price of $55,000. Even with a decent down payment of $5,000, a 60-month loan at a 7% interest rate puts his monthly payment at nearly $1,000. To James, this feels like a suffocating commitment. The finance manager, seeing James's hesitation, offers a solution: an 84-month term. Suddenly, that $1,000 payment drops to roughly $750. James feels a sense of relief, but he is stepping into a financial trap that will haunt him for the next decade. Historical trends show that by the time James is 4 years into this 84-month loan, he will still owe more than $30,000 on a vehicle that has likely depreciated to a market value of $22,000. This is the negative equity gap, a potential outcome where James is underwater by $8,000. The danger of the long-term loan isn't just the total interest paid, which in James's case would exceed $13,000 over the life of the loan. The real danger is the loss of mobility. If James's life circumstances change in year 5, perhaps he has a child and needs a larger car, or he loses his job and needs to downsize, he cannot simply sell the car. He would have to write a check for $8,000 just to get out of the debt. This is why 1 in 4 Americans trading in a vehicle in 2026 are rolling negative equity from their old car into their new loan. They are essentially paying for 2 cars while only driving one. This cycle of debt compounding is the primary reason the average car payment in the U.S. has spiked to $748 for new vehicles. But the 2026 market has introduced an even more deceptive product: the residual-based balloon loan. Marketed under names like Select or Owner's Choice, these products are hybrids between a lease and a purchase. Imagine if James is offered a 48-month term with a monthly payment of only $500. The catch is the final payment. At the end of month 48, James owes a lump sum of $25,000. This is the balloon. The dealership pitches this as a win-win. James gets the low payments of a lease, but the title is in his name. However, the math rarely favors the consumer. James is paying interest on the full $50,000 balance for the entire 4 years, including the $25,000 he isn't even paying down yet. If the market for electric SUVs crashes due to new solid-state battery technology by 2030, James's car might only be worth $15,000 when his $25,000 balloon comes due. He is then forced to either pay the $10,000 difference out of pocket or refinance that balloon into another high-interest loan, starting the debt cycle all over again. Step by step, you must perform a debt audit before you sign the bottom line. First, calculate the total cost of the loan by multiplying the monthly payment by the number of months and adding the down payment. If that number is more than 20% higher than the MSRP, the debt is too expensive. Second, check for a prepayment penalty. In the 2026 market, some subprime lenders are reintroducing clauses that penalize you for paying the loan off early, effectively locking you into the full interest cost regardless of your financial success. Third, you must understand the difference between simple interest and precomputed interest. Simple interest is calculated on the remaining balance each month, meaning you save money by paying extra. Pre-computed interest locks in the total interest cost on day one. Even if you pay the car off in a year, you still owe the full interest for the entire original term. Avoid pre-computed interest at all costs. Now let's look at the emergence of the car subscription model as a third path. In 2026, companies are increasingly offering all-inclusive monthly fees ranging from $600 to $1,500. This fee covers the car, the insurance, the maintenance, and even the registration. For a buyer like James, this can be a strategic move to avoid the risks of obsolescence. If he subscribes to a 2026 model for a year, he isn't tied to the depreciation curve. If the technology improves or his needs change, he simply returns the car. While the monthly cost is higher than a long-term loan payment, the total cost of ownership can actually be lower when you factor in the avoided depreciation and the lack of high-interest debt. Case studies of urban professionals in cities like Austin and Seattle show that subscription models are becoming a preferred method for accessing high-tech vehicles without the long-term fiscal liability. However, the subscription model has its own fine print. You are essentially a long-term renter. You build zero equity. You are subject to strict mileage caps and wear and tear inspections that can result in massive surcharges at the end of the subscription period. Furthermore, if you miss a single payment, many 2026 vehicles are equipped with remote kill switches and GPS trackers that allow the subscription provider to disable and repossess the vehicle within hours. This is the reality of the software-defined vehicle. The manufacturer maintains ultimate control. As we dissect these financing options, we realize that the choice between new and used isn't just about the car. It's about the architecture of the debt you are willing to carry. The most dangerous mistake you can make is falling in love with the car and fitting the loan to your budget, rather than fitting the car to your financial reality. We have covered the lot, the paperwork, the negotiation, and the debt. But there is one final piece of the puzzle that most people assume is a settled fact. Yet it is currently the center of a massive scandal in the U.S. used car market. It involves the history of the vehicle itself. In 2026, a clean title is no longer a guarantee of a clean car. There is a sophisticated method of digital fraud that is allowing thousands of totaled, flooded, and salvaged vehicles to be sold as pristine used cars on major platforms. In the next part, we are going to show you how to look past the Carfax and uncover the digital ghosts of a vehicle's past. We are going to look at the rise of VIN cloning and how to spot a lemon before it leaves you stranded. To understand why a clean vehicle history report is no longer a definitive shield in 2026, you must understand the evolution of title washing and digital VIN cloning. Imagine a buyer named Chloe in Miami. Chloe finds a beautiful 2-year-old luxury sedan listed on a popular peer-to-peer marketplace. The price is attractive but not suspiciously low, and the seller provides a vehicle history report showing 0 accidents, 1 owner, and consistent maintenance at a local dealership. To the average buyer, this looks like the ideal used car acquisition. However, beneath the surface, this car is a digital ghost. This vehicle was actually totaled in a massive flood in a different state 6 months prior. In the 2026 market, sophisticated criminal networks have mastered the art of moving salvage-titled vehicles through states with lax reporting requirements, effectively scrubbing the salvage brand from the physical title before re-registering it in a new state. This practice, known as title washing, creates a potential outcome where Chloe pays $40,000 for a car that should be in a scrap yard. The digital component of this fraud is even more insidious. VIN cloning involves taking the vehicle identification number from a perfectly legal, non-crashed car currently sitting on a dealership lot in one state and applying that number to a stolen or totaled vehicle of the same make, model, and color in another state. When Chloe runs the VIN, the report comes back clean because the system thinks it is looking at the legitimate car sitting 500 miles away. Historical trends indicate that as vehicles have become more reliant on centralized digital databases, the incentives for these high-tech scams have increased. To protect yourself, you must move beyond the paper report and perform a digital and physical forensic audit of the vehicle. Step by step, the first thing Chloe needs to do is a multi-point VIN verification. She must check the VIN plate on the dashboard, the sticker on the driver's side door jamb, and the stamping on the frame or under the hood. If any of these numbers do not match perfectly, or if the plates appear to have been tampered with or reattached, she should walk away immediately. But in 2026, the real secrets are kept in the car's computer. Every modern vehicle has an onboard diagnostics port. Chloe should invest $80 in a high-quality Bluetooth OBD2 scanner that links to her smartphone. When she plugs this in, she can read the internal VIN stored in the engine control unit. If the digital VIN in the computer does not match the physical VIN on the dashboard, she has uncovered a cloned vehicle. Furthermore, the scanner can reveal the car's true history through permanent trouble codes and readiness monitors. Imagine if the seller cleared the dashboard warning lights 5 minutes before Chloe arrived. A standard test drive might not trigger the light to come back on. However, the OBD2 scanner will show that the monitors are incomplete, meaning the car's computer hasn't had enough drive time to verify that the systems are working. This is a massive red flag. Even more critical in 2026 is the event data recorder, or the car's black box. While some data is restricted to manufacturers and law enforcement, many advanced scanners can show if the airbags have ever been deployed, or if the vehicle has experienced a sudden impact event that was never reported to insurance. Case studies from the 2025 to 2026 period show a rising trend in undisclosed frame damage. Modern vehicles use unibody construction, where the frame and the body are a single structural unit. If this structure is bent in a collision and straightened, the metal is permanently weakened. Chloe can spot this by looking for irregular gaps between the body panels. If the space between the hood and the fender is wider on the left than on the right, the car has likely been in a significant impact. She should also look for overspray on the rubber seals around the windows, or on the plastic trim in the wheel wells. Manufacturers do not leave overspray. Only a cut-rate body shop trying to hide a repair does. In the 2026 used car market, we are also seeing the weaponization of the certified pre-owned label. Historically, a CPO car meant the vehicle had passed a rigorous 100-point inspection by factory-trained technicians. Today, some high-volume dealerships have turned CPO into a marketing term, rather than a mechanical guarantee. They might perform the inspection, but they ignore items that are barely within the acceptable range. For example, if the brake pads have 3 mm of life left and the CPO requirement is 3 mm, they pass the car. Chloe buys the car thinking she is safe, only to face a $1,200 brake job 60 days later. To avoid this, Chloe must demand the actual inspection sheet, not just the CPO certificate. She needs to see the specific measurements for tire tread depth, brake pad thickness, and battery health. Speaking of battery health, this is the single most important factor for used electric and hybrid vehicles in 2026. A used EV with 50,000 miles might look pristine, but if the previous owner exclusively used high-speed DC fast charging and kept the battery at 100% in a hot climate like Arizona, the battery degradation could be significant. If the original range was 300 miles and it is now down to 240, the vehicle has lost 20% of its primary value. Replacing a battery pack in 2026 still costs between $10,000 and $20,000 depending on the model. Chloe must use an app-based diagnostic tool specifically designed for EVs to read the state of health of the battery cells. A seller who refuses to let you run a battery diagnostic is a seller who is hiding a dying powertrain. Then there is the issue of the open recall. In the United States, it is illegal for a dealership to sell a new car with an active safety recall, but in many states it is perfectly legal to sell a used car with one. Chloe could drive off the lot in a vehicle with a known defect that could cause the engine to stall on the highway or the steering to lock up. Historical trends show that during periods of high inventory turnover, dealerships often skip the recall repairs because the parts are on backorder and they want the car off their books. Chloe must enter the VIN into the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration website herself. If there are unrepaired recalls, she should insist the dealer performs the work before she takes delivery. As we look at the complexity of these used car risks, the allure of a brand new car starts to make more sense, even with the depreciation. But the new car market in 2026 has its own version of a hidden history. It is a phenomenon known as lot rot. With interest rates fluctuating, some new cars sit on dealer lots for 6 to 9 months. During this time, the tires can develop flat spots, the gasoline can begin to degrade, and the battery can undergo deep discharge cycles that shorten its overall lifespan. Just because a car has 12 miles on the odometer does not mean it is in perfect condition. The choice between new and used is becoming a choice between known costs and unknown risks. We have analyzed how to spot the frauds, how to audit the hardware, and how to verify the digital soul of the machine. But there is a final layer to this decision that most people ignore until it is too late. It is the cost of the future. In an era of rapid technological shifts and changing environmental regulations, the car you buy today might be illegal to drive in certain city centers or impossible to resell in 5 years. In the next part, we are going to look at the massive regulatory shifts hitting the US market and why your choice of powertrain could be the difference between a liquid asset and a permanent liability. We are moving from the mechanics of the car to the politics of the road. The politics of the road in 2026 are no longer a distant concern for the average American commuter. They are a direct influence on the residual value of every vehicle sitting in a driveway. To understand this, we must look at the Advanced Clean Cars 2 regulations, which officially took effect for the 2026 model year. In states like California, New York, Washington, and Massachusetts, automakers are now legally mandated to ensure that 35% of their new vehicle sales are zero-emission vehicles. This isn't a suggestion or a voluntary target. It is a hard quota enforced by significant financial penalties. Imagine a buyer named Marcus in Albany, New York. Marcus is traditional. He wants a gas-powered sedan. But because of these 2026 mandates, dealerships in his state have a restricted supply of internal combustion vehicles to ensure they meet their percentage requirements for electric models. This has created a bifurcated market where the price of a new gas car in a ZV mandate state might actually be higher than in a neighboring state like Pennsylvania, simply due to artificial scarcity created by regulation. This regulatory pressure creates a massive ripple effect in the used car market. If you buy a new internal combustion vehicle today, you must consider its viability in 2030 or 2035, when these same mandates scale up to 68% and eventually 100%. Historical trends in the European market show that as these deadlines approach, the resale value of traditional gasoline cars begins to soften in urban centers while remaining strong in rural areas. For Marcus, this means the car he buys in 2026 might be a liquid asset in the Midwest, but a liability in a major coastal metro area 4 years from now. We are seeing the beginning of a geographic divergence in vehicle value that the United States has never experienced before. Furthermore, we must address the rise of the near-zero emission zone. While full bans on internal combustion engines are not yet common in U.S. city centers, urban planners in cities like Los Angeles and New York are actively discussing congestion pricing and emission-based surcharges. Imagine if Marcus has to pay an extra $20 every time he drives his gasoline SUV into Lower Manhattan, while an electric vehicle owner pays zero. Over a year of commuting, that $5,000 surcharge changes the total cost of ownership math significantly. When choosing between new and used, you aren't just choosing a fuel type. You are choosing your future access to infrastructure. This brings us to the complex reality of the 2026 tax landscape. For years, the federal government offered a $7,500 tax credit for new EVs and a $4,000 credit for used ones. However, under the recently implemented One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the landscape has shifted. For many vehicles acquired after late 2025, these purchase credits have been significantly altered or phased out in favor of manufacturing side incentives. Marcus might find that the specific 2026 model he wants no longer qualifies for a point-of-sale discount, whereas a used 2024 model might still be eligible for a legacy credit if the transaction meets specific income and price thresholds. This creates a scenario where a 2-year-old used car could effectively cost the same as a 3-year-old used car once the tax math is finalized. Step by step, you must perform a jurisdictional audit. First, check if your state is a Section 177 state, one of the more than a dozen states that follow California's stricter emission rules. If it is, realize that your selection of new gas-powered vehicles will become more limited and potentially more expensive every year. Second, look at your local utility company's incentives. In 2026, many utilities are offering $3,000 rebates for the installation of bidirectional Level 2 chargers. This technology allows Marcus to use his car as a backup battery for his home during peak power outages. This is a value add that a 10-year-old used car simply cannot provide. It transforms the vehicle from a depreciating asset into a functional piece of home infrastructure. But what about the resale value of the electric vehicles themselves? Case studies from early 2026 show a massive disparity in how different brands hold their value. For a long time, the narrative was that EVs lose value faster than gas cars because of battery anxiety. However, as the American charging infrastructure has expanded under the 2022 infrastructure law, we are seeing 2026 models with high-density batteries and fast charging capabilities holding their value much better than early-generation EVs. If Marcus buys a 2026 Electron Volts with 350 miles of range and 350 kilowatt charging speeds, he is buying a car that is future-proofed against the next 5 years of tech growth. If he buys a used 2022 Electron Volts with only 200 miles of range and slow charging, He is buying a vehicle that is already obsolete in the eyes of the 2026 consumer. We also have to discuss the hidden cost of the gasoline infrastructure. As the fleet of vehicles on American roads shifts toward electrification, the volume of gasoline sold at traditional stations is beginning to decline in certain regions. Historical trends in industries undergoing technological shifts suggest that as volume drops, the remaining consumers often face higher prices as stations struggle to cover fixed overhead costs. We are already seeing some boutique fuel stations in high-income zip codes charging a 50-cent premium per gallon compared to rural stations. For a used car buyer looking for a bargain, the lower purchase price might be offset by an increasing cost per mile for fuel that was not part of the original calculation. Now, imagine if Marcus decides to go the hybrid route, the middle ground. In 2026, plug-in hybrids are becoming the darling of the American market. They offer the security of a gasoline engine for long road trips through the charging deserts of the West, but provide 50 to 60 miles of all-electric range for daily commuting. These vehicles often qualify for partial tax credits and are exempt from many of the proposed urban emission surcharges. However, they are also the most mechanically complex vehicles ever built. They have a full internal combustion powertrain and a full electric powertrain working in tandem. From a maintenance perspective, a used high-mileage plug-in hybrid is a potential outcome of double the repair risk. Marcus must weigh the short-term fuel savings against the long-term complexity of the machine. The politics of the road also involve data and privacy mandates. New for 2026, federal safety standards require advanced impaired driving prevention technology in all new vehicles. This means a new car is equipped with sensors that can detect if a driver is fatigued or distracted. While this significantly lowers insurance premiums due to improved safety data, many used car buyers are specifically seeking out older models to avoid what they perceive as invasive surveillance. This has created a secondary market for well-maintained vehicles from the early 2020s that lack these active monitoring systems, causing their prices to remain artificially high. As we move through this decade, the line between a car and a mobile data terminal continues to blur. Your choice between new and used is no longer just about the engine. It is about which regulatory era you want to live in. We have looked at the mandates, the taxes, and the shifting urban landscape. But there is a technical revolution happening under the hood that is about to change the way we think about car maintenance forever. It is a shift from mechanical repairs to software updates, and it is creating a massive divide in the used car market between vehicles that can learn and vehicles that are frozen in time. In the next part, we are going to dive into the world of over-the-air updates and the new era of the software-defined vehicle. We are going to show you why a car that doesn't have an active data connection might be the most expensive mistake you ever make. We are moving from the policy to the processor. In the 2026 American automotive market, we have officially crossed the Rubicon from mechanical machines to software-defined vehicles, or SDVs. This is the era of the processor, where the silicon chip in your dashboard is arguably more important than the cylinders in your engine. To understand the gravity of this shift, imagine a buyer named Alex in Seattle. Alex is looking at two vehicles, a pristine 5-year-old traditional luxury SUV, and a brand new 2026 software-centric crossover. On paper, the 5-year-old SUV has better leather, a more powerful physical engine, and a prestigious badge. But Alex is about to discover that in 2026, the older car is effectively a legacy device, similar to a 10-year-old smartphone attempting to run the latest mobile operating system. The core differentiator in 2026 is the over-the-air update, or OTA. For years, companies like Tesla and Rivian paved the way, but now every major manufacturer from Ford to General Motors has shifted to a centralized compute architecture. This creates a phenomenon we call the update dividend. Imagine if Alex buys the 2026 crossover. 2 weeks after he brings it home, the manufacturer releases software version 2026.8. Suddenly, his car receives a feature called comfort braking, which uses high-frequency algorithms to modulate the brake calipers for a smoother stop, or perhaps an update that allows the Cybertruck to warn the driver of blind spot obstacles even while parked. These are potential outcomes where the car actually improves after the purchase. In the old world, the day you bought a car was the best it would ever be. In 2026, the day you buy an SDV is just the baseline. However, this technological leap introduces a new and terrifying risk for the used car buyer: digital decay. Just as a smartphone becomes sluggish as its processor struggles with increasingly complex software, the hardware in an older car can become a bottleneck. Case studies from 2025 and early 2026 show that some early generation connected cars are now experiencing laggy infotainment screens, slow loading maps, and even safety features that take seconds to initialize because the central processing unit is overwhelmed. If Alex buys that 5-year-old SUV, he isn't just buying an older engine. He is buying a processor that may soon be cut off from critical security patches or feature updates. This is creating a steep depreciation curve for tech-heavy cars that lack modular or upgradable hardware. This leads us to the most controversial aspect of the 2026 market: features on demand and the subscription trap. Manufacturers have realized that selling a car once is a missed opportunity for recurring revenue. Today, when Alex looks at the window sticker of a new vehicle, he might see a lower base price, but the fine print reveals that many of the car's hardware capabilities are locked behind a paywall. Imagine if Alex wants heated seats during a Seattle winter. The heating elements are already installed in the car, but he has to pay $18 a month to activate the software that turns them on. Or perhaps he wants the full performance of the electric motor he already paid for. That might require a $99 a month acceleration boost subscription. Historical trends suggest that this model is expanding. In 2026, we are seeing subscriptions for everything from high-fidelity audio presets to advanced lane-keeping assistance. For the new car buyer, this is a choice between convenience and a perpetual monthly bill. For the used car buyer, it is a nightmare of uncertainty. If Alex buys a used SDV, does the subscription for the semi-autonomous driving system transfer to him, or does he have to pay a $4,000 activation fee to the manufacturer just to turn on a feature the previous owner already used? We are seeing cases where used car values are being slashed by 5 to 10% because the manufacturer refuses to transfer software licenses to the second owner. You must verify the software transferability policy of the brand before you sign any used car contract in 2026. Beyond the cost of subscriptions, we must address the issue of cybersecurity. In 2026, a vehicle is a high-value target for digital exploitation. New federal regulations now require manufacturers to provide a software bill of materials, or SBOM, for every new vehicle. This document lists every piece of open-source and proprietary code used in the car's systems. For a savvy buyer like Alex, the SBOM is a critical tool for assessing long-term risk. If a car relies on outdated software libraries that are no longer being patched, that vehicle is a potential outcome for a remote hacking event or a total system lockout. When choosing between new and used, you are essentially choosing between a vehicle with an active security team behind it and one that might be orphaned by its developer. Step by step, evaluating the silicon soul of a 2026 vehicle requires a different checklist. First, you must check the version of the central compute platform. Is it a zonal architecture that can be easily repaired, or a monolithic system that requires a $5,000 board replacement if a single chip fails? Second, you must investigate the manufacturer's update frequency. Data from 2024 and 2025 indicates that some brands push updates monthly, while others only update for critical safety recalls. A car that is regularly updated is a car that maintains its market relevance. Third, you must look at the data connectivity costs. In 2026, many of the most advanced features require a 5G data plan. If the car is 5 years old and uses a sunsetting 4G network, you might lose navigation and remote start functionality entirely. Now, imagine if Alex decides to go with a brand that offers a lifetime software guarantee. These are rare but highly coveted in the 2026 market. It means the manufacturer has committed to providing security and functional updates for at least 10 years. This guarantee acts as a massive floor for the car's resale value. While a car without such a guarantee might lose 60% of its value in 5 years, the guaranteed car might only lose 40%. This is the new math of the American market. The quality of the code is becoming a better predictor of value than the quality of the paint. We also have to consider the impact of the software-defined vehicle on independent repair shops. In previous decades, a mechanic with a wrench and a basic scanner could fix almost anything. In 2026, many repairs require a digital handshake with the manufacturer's servers. If Alex buys a used car from a brand that locks out independent mechanics from their software ecosystem, he is forced to use the expensive dealership network for every minor glitch. This is the hidden tax of the SDV. You must look for vehicles that support the right to repair movement and provide open-source diagnostic access, as these vehicles will always be cheaper to maintain in the long run. The shift to software-defined vehicles is fundamentally changing the definition of a car, from a tool of transportation to a platform for services. We have deconstructed the processor, the subscription models, and the risks of digital decay. But there is a final physical reality that no amount of software can fix, and it is the biggest lie currently being told by automotive marketing departments. It involves the one thing every salesperson claims you don't need to worry about as much anymore, yet it is the primary reason cars are being sent to the crusher earlier than ever before. We are about to debunk the maintenance myth and show you the true cost of keeping a 2026 vehicle on the road for more than 3 years. We are moving from the processor to the pavement. The pavement is where the marketing promises of the automotive industry meet the harsh reality of American infrastructure. For years, the narrative has been shifting toward the idea of the maintenance-free vehicle. Manufacturers and enthusiasts alike have claimed that as we move toward electrification and software-defined platforms, the era of the greasy-handed mechanic and the $1,000 service bill is coming to an end. This is the great maintenance myth of 2026. While it is true that a 2026 electric motor contains approximately 20 moving parts compared to the more than 1,000 parts in a traditional internal combustion engine, the complexity hasn't disappeared. It has simply migrated. To understand how this myth functions in the real world, imagine a buyer named Carlos in Dallas, Texas. Carlos is deciding between a used 2023 gasoline-powered truck and a brand new 2026 electric SUV. The salesperson tells Carlos that the electric SUV will save him thousands because he will never have to pay for an oil change, a spark plug, or a timing belt again. This is factually accurate and represents a significant historical trend. In 2026, the average cost of a full synthetic oil change in a major U.S. city has risen to $125, and a timing belt replacement on a modern V6 engine can easily exceed $900. By eliminating these specific operations, Carlos is indeed removing 2/3 of the traditional maintenance items from his ledger. However, Carlos is about to encounter the pavement tax. Modern electric vehicles are significantly heavier than their gasoline counterparts due to the massive lithium-ion or solid-state battery packs. This weight, combined with the instant torque provided by electric motors, puts an unprecedented amount of stress on the one component that touches the pavement: the tires. Case studies from early 2026 indicate that EV tires are wearing out 30 to 40% faster than tires on internal combustion vehicles. A set of high-performance, low-rolling resistance tires for a heavy electric SUV costs approximately $1,600. If Carlos has to replace those tires every 20,000 miles instead of every 40,000, his maintenance savings are immediately neutralized by a rubber and pavement reality that no software update can fix. Furthermore, we must address the 2026 calibration tax. In the previous parts, we discussed the complexity of advanced driver assistance systems, but we haven't talked about what happens when those systems need to be serviced. In 2026, a simple wheel alignment is no longer a $50 mechanical adjustment. Because the car's cameras and radar sensors are calibrated based on the position of the wheels, a 2026 vehicle requires a full ADAS recalibration after an alignment or a windshield replacement. Data from the collision repair industry shows that nearly 90% of estimates now include a digital scan, and over 60% of vehicles require a specialized calibration that can cost between $300 and $600 per session. For Carlos, a minor pothole on a Dallas highway doesn't just mean a bent rim. It means a multi-hour diagnostic and calibration session at a specialized facility. The maintenance myth also ignores the thermal management systems of 2026. While an electric car doesn't have engine oil, it has a complex network of pumps, valves, and specialized coolants designed to keep the battery at an optimal temperature. In the high heat of a Texas summer, these systems work overtime. Historical trends show that neglecting the coolant flush on an EV battery system can lead to a massive drop in charging efficiency, and in extreme cases, a total failure of the battery modules. This service, performed every 3 to 5 years, often requires proprietary fluids and specialized labor that can cost more than a decade's worth of oil changes on a simple gasoline car. Let's look at the J.D. Power 2026 U.S. Vehicle Dependability Study. The data is startling. Long-term dependability has reached a new low, with an industry average of 204 problems per 100 vehicles. Interestingly, the study finds that gasoline-powered vehicles are actually more dependable over a 3-year period than electric vehicles or plug-in hybrids. The reason isn't the mechanical hardware. It is the integration of the new technologies. Modern car owners are reporting record numbers of issues with infotainment connectivity, erratic over-the-air updates, and exterior trim failures. If Carlos buys the new 2026 SUV, He is statistically more likely to visit the service center for a software glitch or a sensor failure than he would be for a mechanical breakdown in an older, more established gasoline model. Step by step, the way to debunk the maintenance myth for yourself is to perform a life cycle cost analysis. First, go beyond the simple oil change comparison and look at the scheduled maintenance guide for years 5 through 8. This is where the heavy-hitting items like suspension bushings, brake fluid flushes, and thermal system service reside. Second, factor in the cost of out-of-warranty electronics. In 2026, a single failed LED headlight assembly or a cracked infotainment glass can cost over $2,000. If Carlos is buying used, he must ensure the vehicle history report shows that these high-cost digital components have been maintained or replaced. Third, consider the insurance impact of repairability. Because 2026 vehicles are so complex, the total loss frequency has climbed to nearly 23%. Insurance companies are increasingly declaring cars a total loss for relatively minor accidents because the cost of the sensors and the subsequent calibrations exceeds the value of the car. This leads to higher premiums, which is a hidden form of maintenance on your bank account. Now, imagine if Carlos chooses a hybrid, the supposed best of both worlds. In 2026, hybrids are showing up in repair shops more frequently than any other powertrain. They suffer from the maintenance requirements of both systems. Carlos still has to change the oil and the filters for the gasoline engine, but he also has to manage the battery health and the complex regenerative braking system. While hybrids offer incredible fuel savings and often have the highest resale value in the current American market, they represent the highest peak of mechanical and digital complexity. If a hybrid system fails out of warranty, you are looking at a repair bill that can easily reach 5 figures. The reality of 2026 is that there is no such thing as a low-maintenance car. There are only cars with different types of maintenance. The new car buyer pays for maintenance through high initial depreciation and the cost of specialized sensors. The used car buyer pays for it through mechanical wear and the risk of inheriting a digital lemon. We have explored the lot, the finance office, the digital soul, and the physical pavement. We have deconstructed the debt, the fraud, and the myths. Every piece of the puzzle is now on the table. But all of this data leads to a single final question. What is the actual verdict for the American consumer in 2026? If you have $50,000 to spend, is it better to be the first owner of a software-defined future or the savvy collector of a mechanical past? There is a specific mathematical formula that combines everything we have discussed, the depreciation, the interest, the tax credits, and the maintenance, to reveal the true winner. In the final part of this masterclass, we are going to apply this formula to the 3 most common buyer profiles in the US today and give you the definitive answer. We are moving to the final calculation and the ultimate choice. The ultimate choice in the 2026 American car market is not a one-size-fits-all declaration. It is a clinical calculation based on your specific financial trajectory and your tolerance for technological risk. To reach the definitive answer, we must apply the total mobility cost formula to 3 distinct profiles that represent 90% of American drivers today. This formula accounts for the purchase price, the cost of capital, the projected depreciation over 48 months, the estimated maintenance including the pavement tax, and the impact of federal or state incentives. By looking at these case studies, you can identify which path protects your wealth and which one erodes it. First, let us look at the case of Emily, a professional in Chicago. Emily represents the modern urban commuter. She drives 12,000 miles a year, mostly in stop-and-go traffic, and she values reliability and safety above all else. For Emily, the calculation for a new 2026 electric sedan is compelling. The purchase price is $45,000. After applying a mid-range state rebate of $2,000 and factoring in a low-interest manufacturer-subsidized loan of 2.9%, her total cost over 4 years looks stable. Because she lives in a ZV mandate state, the resale value of her electric vehicle is projected to remain higher than a gas equivalent, as urban demand for zero-emission transit grows. When we run the math, Emily's cost per mile is approximately 62 cents. If Emily were to buy a 3-year-old used luxury gasoline car for $30,000, her interest rate would jump to 8%, and her maintenance costs for city-driven wear and tear would escalate. Her cost per mile in the used scenario actually climbs to 68 cents once the higher fuel costs and repair liabilities are realized. For the city dweller in 2026, the new electric vehicle, supported by the update dividend and low-cost charging, is the fiscal winner. Now, let us examine the profile of Robert in rural Montana. Robert needs a heavy-duty pickup truck for work and long-distance travel. The 2026 market for new heavy-duty trucks is extreme, with many models exceeding $80,000. Robert's calculation shifts the verdict toward the used market. In the rural U.S., the infrastructure for electrification is still developing, and the demand for proven internal combustion powertrains remains robust. If Robert buys a new truck, he faces a massive depreciation cliff of nearly 30% in the first 2 years because the initial MSRP is so high. However, if Robert finds a well-maintained 4-year-old diesel truck with 80,000 miles, he is buying an asset that has already seen its steepest drop in value. Historical trends for these specific workhorse vehicles show they retain a high floor of value because their utility is timeless. Even with a higher interest rate on a used loan, Robert's total cost of ownership is lower because his principal balance is $40,000 less. For the high-utility rural driver, the used market is the strategic choice to avoid the overcapitalization of a new work vehicle. The third profile is the most common: the suburban family, represented by Mark and Jennifer in Atlanta. They need a 3-row SUV and drive 15,000 miles a year. This is the segment where the certified pre-owned or CPO market shines in 2026. If they buy new, they are paying for a massive suite of ADAS technology that carries high insurance premiums and calibration taxes. If they buy a standard used vehicle, they risk inheriting a digital lemon with no warranty. The CPO path allows them to acquire a 2-year-old SUV for 65% of its original cost, while retaining a manufacturer-backed warranty that covers those expensive electronic failures. In their case, the math shows that the CPO vehicle offers the lowest cost per mile because it balances the avoidance of the initial depreciation hit with the security of a service contract. This middle path is the gold standard for the average American family in 2026. Beyond these profiles, we must consider the macroeconomic potential outcomes for the next 5 years. We are currently in a period of high technological volatility. If you buy a vehicle today that lacks a robust software architecture, you are betting against the direction of the entire global industry. Conversely, if you buy a vehicle that is entirely dependent on a single manufacturer's cloud, you are tethering your mobility to that company's corporate health. The American consumer is no longer just buying a car. They are choosing a partner in their daily life. To make your final decision, you must perform a 5-year projection. Do not look at the monthly payment. Look at the balance sheet on day 1,825. If you were to sell the car on that day, how much of your total investment would you have recovered? In 2026, the data shows that vehicles with hybrid powertrains and high-quality software interfaces are recovering 55% of their value, while entry-level gasoline sedans and early-generation EVs are struggling to recover 35%. This 20% difference is the true cost of the car. It is the hidden fee of making a choice based on emotion rather than engineering. Step by step, your final acquisition strategy should be this. 1. Identify your powertrain based on your geography and daily mileage. 2. Obtain 3 competing quotes for financing before talking to a dealer. 3. Use a digital OBD2 scanner to audit any used vehicle's computer for hidden ghosts. 4. Verify the software subscription and transferability policies in writing. 5. Calculate the pavement tax for your specific tire and weight class. If the numbers do not align with the 10% rule, where your total transportation costs do not exceed 10% of your gross income, then you must have the courage to walk away. The 2026 market is unforgiving to the uninformed, but it is a land of opportunity for the data-driven buyer. We have seen how the science of debt can transform a car into a prison, and how the art of the negotiation can turn a dealership's margin into your personal savings. We have debunked the maintenance myth and exposed the digital decay that threatens the used car market. You now possess a level of insight that less than 1% of car buyers ever achieve. This has been a masterclass in the most significant purchase of your decade. But as you drive off the lot with your new or used acquisition, there is one final shift happening in the American landscape that no one is talking about yet. It is a shift that could make the very concept of car ownership obsolete by 2030. It involves a new federal mandate for vehicle-to-everything communication and the rise of the autonomous fleet. If this trend continues at its current pace, the car you just bought might be the last one you ever need to own. In our next deep dive, we are going to look at the end of the driver's license and the secret plans of the world's largest tech companies to turn your car into a subscription you can never cancel. We are moving from the driver's seat to the passenger's lounge. The road ahead is changing faster than you think. Stay tuned as we uncover the true future of American mobility.